Excuse me, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And it's 9 o'clock. And so we've called the meeting to order. And I'm just going to verify that we have a quorum.
Sure. Yeah.
And I believe Rob is coming on online, so there'll be. And that's okay. And right now Rob is absent, but he will be joining us a little later. And today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Muskoka Township.
It's here.
Pardon? Okay, okay, so
Good morning, everyone.
all the committee is here. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lake website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, comments being recorded and posted online. There's no supplementary agenda today. Are there any pecuniary interests? Seeing none. I'm not going to go through everything, but just remind the speakers and the delegates that you have 5 minutes to speak. And the motions are pre-populated in random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. Voting members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not a recorded vote. So thank you very much for that. And our zoning bylaw amendment, and that is B 18-2024 ML, and that is the Ontario Limited, and that is 2159670 and GOLDHAR. Okay, and that's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, members of committee. The first applications to be heard are concurrent consent applications B 18-2024 ML amended and zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2624 amended in the names of 2159670 Ontario Limited and GOLDHAR. The subject lands do not have a municipally assigned address. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent and zoning sketches on pages 21 to 24 of the agenda package. As committee may recall, the original iteration of these applications were heard by committee on August 15th, 2024. The site plan displayed on the screen is the resultant lot configuration of these original consent applications sought to achieve 3 resultant lots. Planning Committee recommended to Council that these consent applications be approved. The consent applications proceeded to Council on September 11th, 2024, where Township Council decided to send the applications back to Planning Committee at the request of the applicant's agent, whom expressed that the proposed lot configuration is changing. Next slide, please. The consent sketch displayed on the screen depicts the resultant lot configuration of the amended applications. These applications still seek to achieve 3 resultant lots. However, the configuration of these lots have changed. Due to the change of the resultant lot configurations, consent application B 1924 ML is no longer required. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of consent application B 1824 ML amended is to sever and add land to an abutting lot to the southwest. This application constitutes a change in common lot lines. No new lots are being created. It was noted in the staff report that should committee be considering approval of this application, that staff recommend a condition be imposed to subject the portion of land currently zoned WR1 to be made subject to site plan control for future development, which would include the proposed accessory storage building. This recommendation failed to make its way into the actual resolution. Staff have prepared a revised resolution to include this condition as intended. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of consent application B 2024 ML amended is to create one new waterfront residential lot being 6.23 acres in size with 504 feet of frontage on Lake Rosso. Next slide, please. The zoning sketch displayed on the screen depicts the amended zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2624. The amendments to this application include an enlargement of the area to be rezoned on resultant Lot A from waterfront residential backlot WR2 and waterfront residential steep slopes and narrow water body WR5 to open space private OS2, and to restrict the permitted uses within the OS2 zone to conservation and open space recreation uses only. These amendments reflect the recommendation Planning Committee made to Council on the original zoning application. Next slide, please. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 24 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from John Nunn, Township Building Inspector, stating that the property is currently under construction with septic permit, building permit 2022-0805, which was issued to service the cottage associated with building permit 2022-1026. This is on resultant Lot A. And accessory building permit 2022-1071. It is required that the sewage system supporting development on Lot A be wholly located on Lot A, including pump lines and all components. The future accessory building indicated on the consent sketch appears to encroach upon the proposed septic system location indicated in building permit 2022-0805. As a result, a revision to sewage treatment system permit will be required, indicating a revision to the location. In addition, the revision should include increased daily flow calculations should the system be intended to accommodate flow from the future accessory building in addition to the cottage associated with building permit 2022-1026. Comments were received from Cassie Ems, planner at the District Municipality of Muskoka, and Dennis Durango from Hydro One, both stating no objections to the application. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, manager of operational services, stating that resultant lots B and C will have frontage on a township road. As such, creation of the lots will result in the ability of the lots to obtain entrance permits. As such, it is recommended that severance approval should be subject to confirmation from operational services of the availability of entrance permits for the resultant lots. Lastly, comments were received from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, stating that the calculated fire response time is 23 minutes and 41 seconds based on the average shoot time of the fire department in the last 36 months and a travel distance of 16.5 kilometers from the fire station. This response time is outside of the NFPA rural response time objective of 14 minutes. When response is outside of the rural response time objective, it is prudent to subject developments to additional design requirements beyond the minimum in the building code, potentially including fire sprinklers, increased spatial separations, and building materials of higher fire resistance ratings. As construction will be occurring on the property, we encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks during this vulnerable phase of development. The Fire Smart Homeowners Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended the following. That consent application B 1824 ML amended be approved, subject to standard conditions of consent, that a rezoning be approved to partially rezone severed Lot A in consent application B 1824 ML amended to waterfront residential WR1 and open space private OS2, to prohibit agricultural uses, forestry operation, hunt camp, and wayside pit or quarry uses on the OS2 zoned portion of the lot, and that resultant Lot A be made subject to site plan control through a revised resolution. Staff recommend that consent application B 2024 ML amended be approved, subject to standard conditions of consent. Staff have further recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2624 amended be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Does committee have any questions at this time, or should we hear from the owner and the owner's agent? Okay, bring them in, please.
Good morning, Chair and Committee and Council. My name is Jack Lorenz with the Coning Group, 3 Armstrong Point Road, Port Curling, Ontario, P0B1J0. As Emily has sort of stated on this application, had to make a minor change to the lot lines. I appreciate everybody being involved to help make that change, especially Emily. I know it's a lot of work to rewrite that report. Thank you to Council for allowing us to defer it at the previous council meeting. I don't really have any comments at this time. I think it's pretty straightforward based on what we've already seen. One question I do have perhaps for Emily is on application B20/24/ML amended, is that there's a clause in that says cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the severed lot or entire lands, whichever is less. So I can just get some clarification on that. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
Ms. Crowder to answer his question now.
Pardon?
or you can
I'm
go
sorry.
later.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair Edwards. So the condition for the cash in lieu of parkland is a standard condition that is imposed in the township for any lot creation. So when a lot is created, their standard condition is that cash in lieu of parkland dedication in the amount of 5% of either the severed lot, the assessed value of the severed lot, or the entire lands, whichever value is less, will be dedicated to the township. And that is put in a fund where the township then seeks parkland elsewhere. So it's a standard condition that's spoken to in our official plan, and hopefully that helps clarify, but we can certainly provide more detail if necessary.
No, that's perfect. Just making sure that it's nothing special for this one. So that's great. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Other questions from the members? Okay,
This has the additional amendment that we mentioned.
yes, this one, okay. Excuse me. Moved by Councillor Mazin, second by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee recommend to Township Council the consent application B 1824 ML amended to 1599670 Ontario Limited be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that a satisfactory registrable description deed of the severed lot, together with any required right-of-ways or easements, be submitted to the township, along with the registered plan of the, registered copy of the reference plan. 2, the confirmation be received that the township is satisfied with the resultant lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, that any problems identified with any existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. 3, the legal undertaking be submitted by the acting solicitor, which confirms that the severed lot will merge in title to the benefiting lot upon registration of the transfer/deeds, which may include cancellation of a consent if necessary. 4, that subsection 3 of section 50 of the Planning Act applies to any subsequent conveyance. And 6, that satisfactory confirmation be received from the Township Operational Services Department that any necessary entrance permits be available for the resultant lots. And 7, the resultant lot A, severed lot A and benefiting lot B of the consent application B 1824 ML amended be subject to site plan control for future development, and a rezoning be approved with partial rezoning severed lot A and consent application B 1824 ML amended to waterfront residential WR1 and open space OS2, and to permit it an agricultural use forestry operation, hunt camp, wayside pit, or quarry uses in the OS2 zone portion of the lot. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
The second part of this. Excuse me. Moved by Councillor Roberts, second by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommend to Township Council the consent application B 2024 ML amended. That's 2159670 Ontario Limited be approved, subject to the following conditions. That a satisfactory registrable description deed, the separate lot, along with any required right-of-way or easements be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that a confirmation be received that the township is satisfied with the resultant lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the township. And 3, that the cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the separate lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. That satisfactory confirmation be received from the township's operational service department, that any necessary entrance permits are available for the resultant lots, and that the owners enter into a satisfactory consent agreement with the township pursuant to section 5126 of the Planning Act. Said agreement shall be registered against the title of the lands and contain provisions to the satisfaction of the township, whereas the owner agrees to use soils that have demonstrated ability to effectively retain phosphorus or equivalent septic abatement technologies, which may include the use of soils with appropriate elemental composition to bind phosphorus and post-treat phosphorus controls in the long term for a private on-site sewage disposal system on the retained Lot B and severed Lot B of the consent application B 2024 amendment. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And the last one is moved by Councillor Kent, second by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2624 amended GOLDHAR be approved. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Just so everyone knows, I'm going to change the agenda slightly. And item 10, long-range planning, and B and heritage, we're going to move them to the end and listen to all the other applications first, just so everyone's aware. And the next application is B 3124 ML, ZBA 3724 GAMMON. And that will be Miss Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards.
The next applications to be heard are concurrent consent applications B 303124 ML and zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 3724 in the name of GAMMON. The subject lands are known municipally as 1048 Brown Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent and zoning sketch on page 59 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of consent applications B 303124 ML and ZBA 3724 are to create one new rural lot being 5 acres in size with 692 feet of frontage on Brown Road, a township-owned non-maintained road, to permit a lot addition benefiting the southerly abutting property, to provide exemptions to permit the creation of an additional lot on rural lands, to provide exemptions to permit reduced lot frontages, and to redefine the front lot line of the retained lot. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 20 days in advance of this meeting, and 7 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and staff from Hydro One stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Doug Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, providing fire response times and recommending that the property owners review the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Comments were received from Tim Sapko, the township's manager of public works, stating that the proposed access for a severed lot 1, which fronts onto Brown Road, is via a non-maintained road. These roads are typically not constructed or maintained in accordance with township road standards. The Public Works Department does not review this type of access, and road access for emergency services may be limited and/or unavailable via the proposed road access. If the application were to be approved, the creation of severed lot 1 should be subject to confirmation of the availability of an entrance permit for the lot. After the circulation of comments to committee, further comments were received from Cassie Ems, planner at the District Municipality of Muskoka, requesting that the applications be deferred to provide more time for the review of the application by district staff and to provide more time for amended comments to be provided. A letter of support was also received after the circulation of comments from Aaron and Robert Bourne, residents of 1089 Brown Road, stating no objection to consent application B 3124 ML and the required zoning amendments to allow for said severance as outlined in the notice circulated to neighboring residents. Letters of support were also provided by the applicant's agent from Stephen Yake and Ellen Gingrass, residents of 2781 Muskoka Road 118 West, and Stan Hunter, resident of 2757 Muskoka District Road West, stating no objection to the applications, and they are in full support of continued housing growth in the community. Another letter of support was provided by the applicant's agent from Lloyd Walton, resident of 2791 Muskoka Road 118 West, stating no objections to the applications and that the neighborhood will be enhanced. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that, as requested by district planning staff, consent applications B 303124 ML, GAMMON, and zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 3724 GAMMON be deferred to provide further time for district staff to review the applications and provide amended comments. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. And I believe the applicant's agent is here, so come up.
Jared, and I'm committee, Terry Ledger, agent for the applicant, Mrs. Gammon, also here today. 67 Medora Street, Fort Carling, P0B1J0.
We need the microphone on.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
No, exactly. Oh, sorry. Did you turn it off? So
We'll try that again.
good.
No need to repeat, I could hear it.
I'll just give my name and address again, just for the record. Terry Ledger, agent for the applicant, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, P0B1J0. So I think if you've read the report, you'll see that the majority of what we're asking for has been recommended for approval by staff, and really the main issue, I think, is the additional lot that we would like to be created. And the reason why it's a problem is because this is an unmaintained road, although it is a township road. And I think that this may be sort of one of those times. This is the question I ask myself, is why is it not a maintained township road? Because we've had year-round residents on this road for over a century. And, you know, it's not a seasonal road. It doesn't lead to water. So people have been living on the road. And I think that as year-round, well, any resident deserves services, particularly emergency services. And I believe that actually emergency vehicles have been down Brown Road before. So I think that the road is actually, it's a viable and well-maintained by the owners of the people who live there. And it's located in, well, you'll hear later today as you review the new provincial policy statement about expanding settlement areas and for housing and rural areas, and something that we've looked at in our new official plan as well. Which is why we're here. The zoning bylaw hasn't caught up to the official plan as yet, but this particular property is located in very close proximity to both Port Carling, even closer to Milford Bay. And I think this whole route is a main corridor that we find between towns. And when development happens in rural areas, these are sort of the ideal locations for that, because they are serviced. We don't have to provide any additional services other than it's an unmaintained road. So I would ask that maybe committee consider either choosing to maintain this road in the future, or because it's usually a cost issue, that a condition of the approval be that an agreement maybe with the people who live there to maintain the road, which obviously they do now as they're there year round. So that's my ask. The deferral's a new one. We have the little sliver, you'll see the next application is part of that, is a very time sensitive one. So I would ask that maybe we consider that. I'm not sure why the district wanted to defer. So anyway, those are my comments. I'm here to answer any questions. I know it's a little unusual, so I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will ask, is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Are there questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I too had the question why the district asked for a deferral on this. I recall that this property or property close to it came last term to council, and there was a problem. They wanted to have entrance onto 118, if my memory serves correctly, and the district had turned that down. So I'm just wondering, why is a district, this is all other than for fires. I think we've had some that certain size of property, the district has commented on bush fires. But okay, so my question is, why did the district ask for a deferral?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and thank you, Councillor Roberts, for your question. The email from the district staff was received late yesterday after the council meeting. We hadn't this morning had an opportunity to reach out to district staff with respect to the intent. But I sense in speaking with Ms. Beamish, the district's comment that was submitted didn't actually speak to the severed lot on the WOODRICH property. So I don't know if there's perhaps a bit of uncertainty or confusion on with respect to the district's review of the applications. And I think they may just need a little bit more time to coordinate with their staff, including their public works and engineering department, to make sure that they understand the applications, and if need be, to coordinate with us and the applicants and their agent, just to improve their overall awareness and understanding of the apps. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Supplemental, if I may.
Supplemental, yes.
To the agent, you mentioned that it was time sensitive, or the next one is time sensitive. Is this one time sensitive?
Yes, thank you through chair to you. Yes, well, one is dependent on the other. So there's a little sliver on 118 that's being given to the WOODRICH property so that it has enough frontage. The problem is that that was a big lot and there was a little tiny lot taken sort of out of the middle of it. So it's created these two separate frontages, and one's fine. The one we want to sever is, 575 feet, but the result or the retained lot ends up being really short. So the GAMMONs are giving a part of their frontage on 118 to that lot. So so part of this severance is a change of lot lines, and then part of it is a new lot. So it all works together.
Yes.
I'm not sure that, through you to staff, I'm interested in what the repercussions would be if we were to move forward. I don't see the challenges that the staff of district are having. And I feel that, I think it'd be very difficult for this applicant. At this time of year, people want to get going with projects. And, I'm not sure why we're holding things up from a district perspective. If they don't understand Muskoka Lakes, because that's what it sort of feels like. We have these situations all over the place. Again, my question would be, and I'm not sure who can answer it, what happens if we choose to move forward today?
Okay. Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I think the district is an important stakeholder with respect to these applications, in the sense that the properties have frontage on Muskoka Road 118. One application seeks to reduce the extent of the portion of the property abutting Muskoka Road 118. The other application seeks to create a new lot on Muskoka Road 118, and that new lot would require an entrance. So in my mind, I don't think it would be wise at this point to proceed without first hearing from the district. And I would note, just with respect to that comment, the district would be a public body, meaning that they would have the ability to appeal council's decision if you chose to proceed without first hearing their comments. So I don't think we would want to put ourselves in that situation, and I could certainly appreciate the applicant wants to get moving along with this. My sense is that we could defer and perhaps aim to bring this back next month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, supplemental.
So this is where I'm challenged, and I'm not quite sure why Muskoka Lakes is unique. Because I've noticed multiple new driveways off of 169, which is similar to 118 as far as a district perspective goes. When I go into Gravenhurst, which is only like 3 minutes distance between Muskoka Lakes and, where I am. And there are so many new lots that have been created that are closer to 100 feet between each lot. We are so much larger than anybody else. Honestly, our requirements are so different than any other municipality. And this just feels very punitive for the district to say, we got to have a look at this closer, because they're allowing all sorts of them to happen along 169 in Gravenhurst.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you know how we normally do it. And that,
You can recognize her, you're there.
but I'll let you have one comment and one comment only.
Thank you. It's actually a suggestion that would maybe help out everyone. That this, of course, has to go to council next month anyway. So it may be a condition that, that we receive more comments from district. They have commented commented already, and then I think they've gone back and realized something. I don't know what, which is why they're asking for this late deferral. We did get comments from district already. So just a thought that just to keep it rolling. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Councillor Berry. Yes, questions at this point. And this is what makes it hard. Any other questions? Moved by Councillor Berry, second by Councillor Zabitz. Be it resolved, the planning committee recommend to Township Council that consent application B 3024 ML Gammon be denied. Now we're open to questions and comments.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm having a little difficulty with this particular one in the recommendation of the planners to deny it. We're talking about one new lot on a dead end road. There are 3 other lots there that are serviced by it. It's all, I can't use the word grandfathering anymore, legal by prior pieces because they have waterfront. We talk about wanting to have more housing, and yet we seem to just keep putting up hurdles for folks that are actually proposing to put in housing within 5 kilometers of both Port Carling and Milford Bay. This particular piece I'm pretty familiar with, and I actually think this is an elegant situation to bring the one property of the daughter and son-in-law to be more in compliance and add a lot. I mean, they're putting a lot beside their principal residence. It's not like it's going to be a big problem. I don't think they're going to come and say now the township needs to maintain it, but if it does, it's actually shorter than my driveway. So I'm having I understand we have to do things as a principle, but I just don't believe we have to be in a position where everything is viewed the same way. And we need to look at things and I know we do and we try, but I think this is one where we may have missed it. And I'm not in favor of denying this.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Roberts.
Hey, thank you, Chair Edwards, and through you. I too am sort of supportive of this kind of stuff, but not with everything we've put in place. You recall in the asset management, I really pressed former Director Becking to start to include in the asset management plan at least an indication of all the cottage roads that we have, and there's lots and lots of kilometers of that. And there's a statement in the asset management that recognizes all these roads and says that council should consider taking these on. I don't think we want to jump ahead on that, even though I support this. I'll give you the best example that I am living with is on Leonard Lake Road 1 and Leonard Lake Road 2. Leonard Lake 1 starts at the highway, is maintained by cottagers for about 1.5 kilometers. And in my opinion, it's one of the best maintained roads that we have for good pushback on snow. So it wouldn't be hard for the township, in my opinion, to take it over. But on Leonard Lake Road 2, it's a very narrow, after the township portion, it's a very narrow road, very dangerous, like it's no place to push back snow. So if we were to advance this one, because I too think it's, this looks like a slam dunk. I think it's precedent setting, because I know I'd be coming or the Leonard Lake, the East Leonard Lake Properties Owners Association would come right away, maintain ours, as would Glen Gordon, which is a seasonal road. So I think,
Yes, Councillor Nishikawa.
I just have to ask the question, do we not want housing in Muskoka Lakes? This couldn't be any easier. We're not talking about a 100-foot lot or even a 40-foot lot. We created a 40-foot lot in Bala, for Pete's sakes. this is huge. It's the reality of how most rural people live in Muskoka Lakes. We have no intention of changing that, but I do have to ask everyone, are we interested in housing in Muskoka Lakes? Because this, in fact, is, I'm going to say probably the one most affordable situation that we can create. There's no sewer and water available to most of the people in our communities. And if we don't approve this type of thing, our doors are not open. That's what it feels like to me. And I sit at these housing meetings and I struggle and I struggle. I say, where does Muskoka Lakes get an opportunity, or where this is one of those opportunities? And I would suggest, I hope it's precedent setting. I hope that so many people come forward with large properties that they want to sever and add and allow one more family to live in Muskoka Lakes, to be employed in Muskoka Lakes. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor.
So I do have a question. If we were to approve this, does that automatically mean that Browns Road needs to be assumed by the township? Where does that correlation come from? And could we not say, yes, we're going to do this, but we have no intention of taking on Browns Road at this time to be a township road?
Thank
I
you.
guess
Mayor
that goes
Kelly.
to someone in planning. It was a question.
Mhm. Yeah. And that, Mr. Sharp.
I think-
Mr. Sharp.
I think we as a council want an answer to that.
Yeah,
Is there a
just wait
positive
for
correlation?
Mr. Sharp. And Mr. Sharp, with that, I'd ask another question. If this was granted as a lot, could we put it on title that it was not an assumed road by the township, that they'd have to clear it themselves?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'll do my best to answer the questions. First and foremost, the municipality would not be under an obligation to assume the road for year-round maintenance. At least that is my understanding from a planning perspective. I would note that there is, policy in our official plan identifying that the township does not wish to take on the assumption for maintenance of non-maintained public roads. So that is coming from our official plan. I think with respect to Councillor Nishikawa's comments and some of the sentiment around the table, absolutely. Staff support affordable housing, attainable housing. But I think, as we've always said, it needs to be done within the context of what we feel is good planning. And I think there's official plan policies, very strong official plan policies from the province, in the district official plan, and our official plan, whereby in the rural area designation, new lot creation essentially isn't permitted on a public road that is not year-round maintained. And I think one of the concerns is that it would create a precedent, as Councillor Roberts had pointed out. There's other roads that are seasonally maintained, non-maintained, and it would perhaps open the door for future applications for landowners fronting onto those roads to sever their property. And of course, what may eventually occur is an increased demand or pressure on the municipality after having created those lots to now maintain them, to provide garbage services, school busing, and so on and so forth. With respect to Councillor Edwards, a question concerning whether some type of an agreement could be put in place. Yes, certainly under the Planning Act, Planning Committee has the ability to impose conditions of consent, and a consent agreement could be imposed wherein the owner would acknowledge that the road is non-maintained, and wherein they would acknowledge that emergency services may not be able to access their property on a year-round basis. Thank you.
Okay, and as well as school bus pickup and also garbage. Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, I have a couple of comments, and I'm going to first key off what Councillor Nishikawa said. All I know is we have a really tangible housing crisis that was created in part because of the sort of traditional way we look at lot development, lot creation, and the ability to grow the population. And we're never going to move this forward if we don't stop thinking in conventional ways. I think it's time we step up and realize that there are hundreds of people in this district on wait lists, many of whom are waiting actually for the rest of taxpayers to step up and fund the development of publicly owned housing, affordable, attainable housing. Here's an opportunity that somebody's coming with us that they're doing themselves, they're footing their bill themselves. And I think that's a huge opportunity that we should not take lightly. Number two, I've always had a problem, and I'm sure I sound a bit like a broken record. I think this is the third or fourth time that this situation of municipally owned but unmaintained roads has come up. I, for the life of me, don't understand how we can absorb the potential liability that comes with owning a road, a thoroughfare. We know people use on a daily basis because they live on the road, they pay taxes on the road, and we leave it to their discretion how it's going to be maintained, when it's going to get plowed, how it's going to get salted. Somebody's going to get hurt, and if we're not looking after it, if they are not looking after it, and I'm not even, I'm not challenging their ability to do the job. Obviously, they're doing the job well, but we've kind of turned and looked the other way and said, you handle it. And I don't think that's an appropriate way to protect the rest of the constituents against the possibility that this doesn't go well. Somebody gets hurt on that road because it isn't maintained to the standards that we would maintain it. I think, again, legal training, I think there's a liability sitting there that we need to address head on, and simply writing it off as not allowed or something we haven't covered off is very risky for the township.
Thank you. Through you. I agree completely with everything that's been said by Mayor Kelly, by Councillor Nishikawa. And where I live, just let me start by saying, I live on a road that is not maintained by the township. And there's a lot of us who live on that road. And in Walker's Point, that's exactly what you said. That's the way people have been living for hundreds of years. You have your little cabin in the middle of nowhere, and you get your road and you maintain it. I think I agree completely that this is a really creative way to create housing in a place where we have no housing and we apparently have no real plans to deal with the housing issue. And I therefore support what's been said.
Okay, Councillor Zavich.
Thank you, through you. I guess to staff, to Zoe, I suppose, I'm interested in the tone of the language is the word denied uppercase as opposed to defer. So the use of the language, given the conciliatory sort of feeling and emotion around the table from both sides, could you explain why we wouldn't use the word defer instead of deny? I mean, in a collaborative sense, whether tax-paying public, wouldn't we, I guess the spirit here is to try to find ways as it relates to housing. I'm not sure to the extent that this proposal, I don't see where there's 36 houses proposed, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I think we're presupposing there's going to be all housing abounding here. But I wonder why we didn't use the word defer instead of deny, because we'd be working with the public.
Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Chair Edwards, as I think Mr. Sharp has already mentioned, the township's rural lot creation policies in the official plan are quite clear on not kind of supporting applications on non-maintained roads due to the potential impacts they might have to pressure the township into extending services to these newly created lots. So it seemed quite clear from a policy perspective that the application could not be supported by staff. I suppose the only way that it would have been was if it fronted onto a maintained road, which in this case it couldn't have been reconfigured to do.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Through you. So then this isn't the right environment to be, I mean, I'm in agreement. I think we probably all might be, but this just doesn't feel like the right environment to all of a sudden stand up as a group and say, let's go. I mean, we're gonna just look at that later with boathouses and accommodation and so there are a lot of these things we need to deal with. And I just don't know. I guess my question would be, is this the right environment, Chair?
Okay, thank you. We'll have to just let you answer that before I go to Councilor Nishikawa.
Yep, thank you, Chair Edwards. Yeah, I would note that staff are reviewing these applications against the official plan that was just approved fairly recently and are reviewing them against those recent policies. So, you know, the forum to have those larger, broader discussions around rural lot creation and whether lots have to front onto a public year-round maintained road or not would have likely been more appropriate as part of that process versus a site-specific application like this. And I think precedent is one of staff's concerns. Thank you.
Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. When we were having those conversations and things, and I would just say, in general, sort of backroom conversations, more at district, and I would say that, well, all we can do is react when applications start coming. We have an application. So is it my big concern is because I've been encouraging people to start thinking about subdividing or severing. And we have one on East Bay Road that he's looking at taking 40 acres and creating some housing. So what I'm sort of hearing though, is that we're not interested in hearing those applications now. Because we have to have those applications like this application to come forward so we can open this conversation up. But otherwise, we're not having the conversation. We are not having any conversations about how to create housing in Muskoka Lakes that is not in downtown Port Carling or Bala. And otherwise, we're stuck. And I don't know when that conversation is going to happen, but I was always told, wait till an application comes and then we can open up the conversations. I'm hearing we're going to shut this conversation down. And that really concerns me because otherwise I am not even clear what I'm doing as a counselor. Truly, I'm not, because I'm not fulfilling anything of what we were meant to be doing, in my opinion.
Okay, would you like to answer that, Mr. Sharp or Mr. Payne? Well, it's just a case of, yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, committee, through the chair. I think as staff has repeatedly said, and I think I would echo those concerns, what staff is doing is implementing the official plan policies that council has approved. I think it's fairly explicit and black and white. There's a policy in the official plan that rural lots must front onto year-round maintained roads, municipally year-round maintained roads. This lot does not. So staff are simply forwarding a recommendation, and district planning staff have concurred with that planning analysis that the proposed lot does not conform. Should you wish to create lots that front onto seasonal roads or non-municipal roads, I would recommend that you instruct staff to consider an official plan amendment, and staff can come back with a background report and an analysis of that request. I don't want to mislead committee. I'm not sure if staff would recommend such an official plan amendment, but for all those concerns that I think you've heard from staff, but that would be the appropriate route to open up the official plan through an amendment and open up the door under the goal of creating more housing. But the other thing I would note, obviously having been involved in the official plan review process, some analysis was done by the consultants and staff, and there is no shortage of rural road frontage year-round maintained by a municipality in the township. We looked at the option or the demand, the need to open up seasonal roads, and that was not present. I forget the figures off the top of my head, but there was extensive year-round maintained municipal road frontage in the municipality vacant and available for housing. The policies were relaxed. Previously, requirements were upwards of 600 feet and 10 acres and limited lot creation to one new lot per landholding. We relaxed those to 500 feet, I believe it's 5 acres, and removed the restriction of one lot per landholding. And that was quite a restrictive policy put in place many years ago by council, specifically to rein in rural lot creation. And that was in place for 20 plus years at the township. And I know a number of property owners were frustrated that had ample frontage and acreage on year-round maintained roads. But that one lot per landholding limitation, which in my opinion felt somewhat arbitrary, It was a random date. So that was removed in an effort to allow more housing. Again, so long story short, should council wish to open it up further and consider seasonal roads, I would advise committee to instruct staff to do that review and analysis and come back with the background report on the appropriateness of that. But right now, under the official plan that was approved, staff are unable to support a lot on a seasonal road. It simply doesn't conform with the official plan. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Mr. Payne. Was there any other questions or comments on this? Oh, yes, Councillor Bosworth.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Pink. You basically answered my question, because it's very clear that both at the provincial level and the OP level, we cannot allow this, and that's our own policy. I'm very interested in hearing that the staff has done a report in the past that addresses expanding our full year servicing. I'd be interested in reading that. But if we want to walk the talk, and we don't think we're getting enough lot creation in rural, then we need to either expand the amount of roads that we're willing to maintain, or change the policy about not maintaining roads. But I think we have to follow what our plans say right now, and that would be to deny this, because that's what our plan is. I mean, we got to follow our plans.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I really like this conversation, because I'm very supportive of the concept that we need to do something to allow some of these township not maintained roads to come into the fold, and that's what we said in the asset management plan. So this is, as Councillor Zavitz says, maybe not the time and place to do this right now, and Councillor Nishikawa saying, well, when is it? And I think that we need to start something immediately. I don't know whether you need to bring something forward to our next planning committee meeting, asking for staff to bring a report back, but we can consider that. There's two other points I want to make. We do have service level reviews coming up. And we've gone to a lot of work in the last 6 years to have these strategic plans and all these, setting the foundation. So during service level reviews, maybe we can talk about maybe opening up a few of these roads to with certain caveats. I have a question though for staff. Thank you for allowing me to continue, Chair. We have a lot of examples. Well, GOLDHAR application that just came by, where they have one property that has access to a township maintained road, and then they give a right of way to the other properties. Could the same happen with this one?
Yes, Mr. Sharp, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Edwards. I think it's important to draw a distinction between policies for the waterfront designation and policies for the rural area designation. As we know, there's been plenty of lot creation in our waterfront area designation over the years, and what the policies require for a waterfront residential property with a recreational dwelling is either water frontage or a combination of access via a private road or frontage and access from a public road. So that's much different than the rural policies that speak to residential dwelling units and a requirement for access via a public year-round maintained road. So there's just a distinction in the policies there. Thank you.
And then we're going to cut it off.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think I understand you stated the policies and the difference between the two. But how difficult would it be to do this is the question I have.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just state that, anything is possible. Council can go against staff, as is your prerogative, to create the new lot, and you could, I suppose, proceed by granting a right of way, although I would question that, given that in this context, the road is actually a public road. It's just not maintained. So in essence, the township would be granting a right of way over a public road, which I don't think makes any sense. Maybe I'm not understanding your question. But if you wanted to create a new lot with access via a private right of way, certainly it could be done, but there's really no policy in the official plan that would support that. Thank you.
You had, yes.
Thank you, it's for you. I just wonder if there is any appetite for the proponent to, again, the word deny versus defer. While I don't love deferrals, I wonder if in this case, does this give life to this file to continue on? Perhaps there is an option, whether it's right of way or whatever.
Okay, because you have asked a question, I will let the agent answer that or the owner.
Thank you. I think maybe a way forward would be to make conditional that either the road be maintained, taken on by the municipality at some point, or that an agreement be made between the owners and the municipality to maintain the road. And if that's a condition, then you don't get the lot creation until something happens there. That way it doesn't kill everything, and it's an amendment, it stays on title. So at some point, I would be very hopeful that the town would take on, this is a year-round residential road. This is not seasonal at all. It doesn't go to a lake. People live here. People live here. They've been living here for 100 years. So at least that leaves the door open that we can then come to an agreement at some point. And the moment that happens with the road, the lot can be created and we don't have to come back here. And essentially that's deferring it. If that makes
So
sense.
you would like it deferred?
No, I'd like it approved on condition.
I know what you would like.
I'm just asking. I just thought that's a way forward. It seems to me that, this committee has some appetite for the development of these rural lots. And really the question is just who maintains the road. And I thought if we make that a condition of the severance, then at such time that happens, the lot can be created.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
So I would actually support that.
support.
I would support doing it on the condition because I already know who maintains that road currently. That road is currently maintained by a resident of the road. They plow it because they need to get in and out. And so nothing's changing. I'm going to go back to, I understand the planning and the Planning Act, but I have a very difficult time having one size fits everybody.
Right.
This is clearly an opportunity for us to take a look at what is black and white and say, you know what, there's probably 64 shades of gray here. And there may in fact someday be 256,000 colors. It's not black or white. It's not 0 or 1. And my problem is I grew up in a family with an engineer where everything was black or white. And so obviously I'm the oldest child, I'm the rebel. So I'm quite happy to look at how do we move forward? And if this is not the case, I don't know what is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now,
That's the consensus. Could we have 5 minutes to craft the resolution?
that's what I was just gonna say. We'll take 5 minutes, get a consensus and that, but before we do that, I'm gonna comment. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. Having listened to the conversation, and I definitely have been more on the idea of supporting what staff is recommending because of the precedents and the idea that we are trying to uphold an official plan in a lot of different ways. And I'm trying to figure out how to reconcile a lot of these different pieces, which is we're trying to support families who are looking to expand. And I just ask, are there other configurations as a possibility on that lot that would help achieve the goal? I'm not familiar with this property, but it's because it's on to that Brown Road that there's the current issue. Has contemplation or consideration ever been given to access the 118 access? And would that change completely this discussion? I think I'm just trying to understand that.
Okay, Mr. Sharp? Before you answer that, was the district not asking that the one unused entrance be closed off of that road?
Through you, Chair. Yes, I believe the district, after some clarification on their initial comments, confirmed with Ms. Beamish that they would like the existing entrance on Muskoka Road 118 to be closed as a condition. Since then, Ms. Beamish has received further correspondence from district staff requesting a deferral.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, but does everyone, I'm going to do a straw poll. Are you looking for a deferral at this time? Yes.
Thank you. Just a quick supplemental. Mr. Sharp was just saying, I'm not sure if my question was responded to. So I'm not familiar with this property to understand if there's different configurations that would allow them to achieve the goal of adding housing that would eliminate our need or desire, or we're in this uncomfortable position of having to go against an OP that we were just
Okay.
implementing. So I'm just asking that question.
Mr. Sharp, so right now they'd have to use Brown Road. If they got an easement over the entranceway going into the property, they could use it that way. And that. Yes.
I don't know if that was my question. I think I'm asking, is there a different opportunity to configure this that would achieve the goal?
No.
And I don't know this property, so I'm asking staff and or the applicant. Could I ask the applicant? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Edwards, Marcia Gammon, 1048 Brown Road, Port Carling, P0B1J0. Speaking to your question as to you're not familiar with the land, there would be no way to build a house off of the access off 118 that would need to be, it's been asked to be closed. It's a valley. It is not conducive to a good building site. It's on a bad curve on a highway, which isn't good. I'm not sure how they ever got that access, and we were told we were not allowed to use it. Back when we built our house, we were actually told that we needed to access off of Brown Road. So there's a little bit of back and forth going on here. We've walked the land, we know the land, we love the land. It's maintained, managed forest. We're very proud of it. Our families are around us. We have a strong community neighborhood. We use the land. We've picked the spot that we feel is the most, I think, the best building site possible. And, we're trying to encourage a home, a family home. I've been in this community 30 years. I've been a business owner, still am, support everything, try to build the town, and this is like a wall that seems a bit ridiculous. And I support growth, and I just see this as a strong way forward. We want to have a family move in there that will work in Port Carling and support our community. And there's so much that goes on the lakes that seems ridiculous. And this is so straightforward. And I just ask that, you consider that we know the land, and what we've requested to be severed is the best possible site for a viable home for a family. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, my straw poll was, do you want it deferred, or do you want to vote on the motion to deny? Yes.
Thank you, and through you. I actually think the option that was raised by Ms. Ledger does both. It allows this thing to be approved, but with conditions on it that, if met, solves the problem. For instance, if we suddenly decide to assume responsibility for the road, problem solved. If there's an official plan amendment, which I doubt there would be, problem solved. If I think Councillor Burry suggested executing a contract to maintain to certain standards solves the issue, problem solved. We don't have to, it's effectively a deferral, but with conditions that once met immediately crystallizes the right to move forward with the severance, I think.
Okay,
I think that's the third option.
yes, yeah,
Thank you. I'm interested in the third option or
Yeah.
combined with what Guy had mentioned as
Okay.
well.
Councillor Roberts, I think you had your hand up or not? No, okay. Yeah, okay, Councillor Bosenworth.
Yes, thank you. We could also just do a simple deferral and see if we can get any of those issues or those ideas that the mayor just suggested done. A conditional approval, I just don't know why we would do a conditional approval. I think we could just say we'll defer on this severance. I think we should address the other severance and lot creation on the next application, and we should look at those and probably get them done today.
Okay.
But I think a simple deferral and see if any of those options, get a staff report to see if any of those options are viable.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I certainly appreciate the sentiment around the table today and from the applicant and the agent to try and move things along. All I would say is that I'm a bit hesitant because we haven't heard specifically from the district with respect to their request for a deferral. I don't know if we move this forward with some type of condition, if the applications will need to be amended or there may be concerns that can be legitimately addressed. I think it would be better just to defer for a month and bring this back in November. And in the meantime, staff can work with the applicant, the agent, the district, and try to come back with something and make a decision at that time versus bringing this forward to council. I think we've tried to make a conscious decision to do the quote unquote heavy lifting here at planning committee and then proceed to council when we have some clarity with respect to how things are going to be moving forward with these applications. So those would be my comments, but of course it's up to committee to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mazin, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to hear from staff what their recommendation was, having heard everything from today. So I think I just heard their recommendation would be to defer for
Okay.
a month to give everybody a little bit more time to.
So how many people would like a deferral at this time? So we can get this. Three, it's 7. Okay, we're gonna
Okay, so
make up a motion for a
Yeah.
deferral. And we'll take a 10-minute comfort break at this time so we can get that done. Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Sorry, yes, I just wanted to state as well that the next application is the WOODRICH application,
Right.
which is contingent on the applications that we're deferring here now. They're adding lands to that as part of the application that you're choosing to defer. And that application can't proceed without that lot addition. So I think it makes sense to defer that application as well.
It can't, like, but if we give them the lot addition,
I think it makes sense to defer everything.
yes.
Through you, I am not clear. I would be fine with still doing the next application. Because while it is tied to the other property, it's not holding, like, I think we can still move forward with that one application for the lot addition. Whether or not the severance happens, we can still do the lot addition as they're being asked.
Okay.
And
Mr. Sharp.
I don't believe that. I just don't think that we need to defer everything.
Now, Mr. Sharp, memory serves me right, that lot addition, it just makes the retained lot smaller than what the district would like, but it doesn't really affect it to the other extent, does it not?
Through you, Chair. Ms. Bemis has shared the consent sketch for the 2 applications that are being heard now. One component of it is to add lands to the benefiting lot that you can see on your screen.
Right.
The intent of that lot addition is to add frontage to the benefiting lot so that the next severance can comply with or conform with official plan frontage requirements. So the two are dependent on each other. And I believe, in fact, there's even a condition on application B30, on the next application B32 24 ML, that B31 24 ML be approved. In other words, that the lot addition be approved before the last consent proceeds. So they're both hand in hand. And I don't think it would make sense at this point to approve one and defer the other. I think it's as much as it may be an inconvenience at this point, I think it just makes sense to defer everything and come back after we've conferenced with the district and the applicant and their agent. Thank you.
Okay, again, what would the committee like, just defer and clean everything up? Yes, I should have a quick show of hands. Okay, so we're gonna defer them both at this time.
But we have to do resolutions, so we're
And
gonna read a
yeah, and there will be
resolution.
resolutions, and we're gonna take a 10-minute break. That will be back at 10:30. And we'll have a resolution for that. Thank you.
And should this be successful, we then need as amended
Main motion is amended.
after
Okay,
this
yeah,
is approved, okay?
Okay, are we back on now? Okay. I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. And before I read this resolution, I'm going to have Ms. Huff give an explanation.
Thank you, Chair. So the resolution that has been drafted, as written, just clarifies that the matter is going to be deferred in order that we can consult with the district municipality of Muskoka to clarify their concerns in regards to the application. I will note that based on what we've been hearing at around the horseshoe today, if the committee felt strongly about opening up the official plan policies in regards to lot creation, that we would need a separate resolution from committee directing staff to do so.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Burry, second by Councillor Zabitz. Be it resolved that the motion be amended to defer the matter in order that staff may confer with the district municipality of Muskoka in order to address any district concerns. Yes.
Through you, I didn't hear you mention which matter we're deferring, whether it's both matters or just the first one. Just the main motion. Okay. Not touching the second one. What's it called? Woodridge. Okay.
I assume there's no, through you, Chair, I assume there's no requirement that staff had mentioned they'll work with the applicant for the maintenance of the road. Right? It doesn't need to go in the resolution. Okay.
We can't hear you, Chair.
Oh, sorry. And that there was a couple of questions there and basically I said that the agent can talk to the staff after this. So this is, I've read this. This is on just number 30, which is the severance off of Brown Road. So all those in favor?
For clarification,
Yes.
sorry, but you said this is only for the number 30 and not 31?
At this point, yes, that's what I've been told.
Okay, thank you.
And then we will be looking at that separately. Okay,
Yes.
so that, and then that to amend.
So does this carry? The amendment
Yes, I
resolution?
did vote. Everyone
Yeah,
voted, I believe.
I vote
Yeah.
in support of that.
Are you voting to support this? The deferral?
Yeah.
Okay, no,
It's just that Councillor Rosenworth interjected, so I wanted to
Yeah.
be clear.
we just wanted to make sure for council.
And so now I just. So I should turn that. And we just want by a show of hands approval that the main motion.
Okay,
the-
and just by a show of hands that the main motion as amended is approved. That's just saying that we're deferring it. Because we had read.
So the main motion was to deny, I believe
Yep.
was the term. Council just passed a resolution to amend that motion to deny to a deferral motion in order that some consultations with the district occur. And now we're asking you to approve the main motion as amended.
Okay, and you don't need this signed, do you? No, okay, so, yep, I just want to show of hands, okay, so
Thank
that's it. Okay. And the next one is A 3224, ZBA 3824, Woodridge.
We need a resolution.
Pardon? Wait a minute,
Sorry. We have B30, which we just did, but we need B31.
okay, we've got B 31, yeah.
So this one is also going to be deferred.
Okay, so if we don't read it in, then we're fine,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
We haven't read it in. We
No,
had to
yeah,
amend the
yeah,
others
so,
that had
yeah.
been read into the meeting.
Yeah.
So,
So we don't have a resolution on the second severance.
well, we can't really do one, can you, without the first part? Can you consider this?
No, this one, I'm still
Just
gonna
a
come
minute.
here
No, that's,
because there's two severance applications here.
Right, so is the second one 3124?
Sorry, not this one. Sorry, I'm down here.
yeah, down
So
here,
there's
yeah.
B30 and there's B31.
Yeah, so this is 31.
Okay,
Can it be considered at this time?
it has to be deferred as well. Same issues. We need district comments.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a second Gammon.
Yeah.
Well, present it and we'll see what staff say and the council decides.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you. Maybe just to provide a bit of clarity for committee. We've deferred the first applications. The second application, we still need to have a public meeting, a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. So Zoe's going to do her regular introduction, and Chair Edwards is going to follow through with the requirements under the Planning Act for
Thank
that.
you.
I just wanted to, again,
That's what I kinda
maybe a bit
thought.
confusing, so thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Ms. Beamish, would you like to? Just a minute. That's.
No, I don't think Bryce was wrong. It's two Gammon.
No, just a minute till we get this here straightened out, please. Okay, Mr. Sharp.
Okay, so what about 31?
Hey, Mr. Sharp, would you like to say something?
Through you, Chair, it seems like there may have been a bit of confusion. The resolution that was just read deferred only one of the consent applications. I think we need to do a redo on that resolution, and we'll need to read another resolution deferring both of the Gammon applications.
Did you want to say something, Mayor Kelly?
Sorry, but the two Gammon resolutions, but not the, well, what's the last one? Woodrich, not the Woodrich one, right? It's going to be heard separately and we're going to hear the whole story. Okay. All right, understood.
Sure.
If we could just have a minute, please.
Yes. Rob, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's a little at disadvantage being on Zoom, and I apologize for that. I think we just read a resolution that deferred both 30 and 31 on the Gammon.
No, I'm sorry, we did not.
So we have only deferred 30 then?
That is correct.
And what are we doing with 31?
That's what's being discussed.
Thank
So
you.
if we could have a minute, we'll come back. to
No,
you.
that's fine. Thank you. I want to be clear on that. Thank you.
If you could just please give me a moment.
We're gonna do the same thing with the Woodridge.
Okay, but you're gonna introduce Woodrich, aren't you? Yeah, so I have a minute to get that one going. So I just want to make sure I've got this. B20 Gammon, B deferred. The consent application, this and ZBA. And that's B 3024, right? That's the ZBA? Oh, no, that's a consent, excuse me. This one, ZBA 3724?
Yeah.
Okay. No, Jesus. Sorry, I gotta quit swearing up here. Oh, that's the main one. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just do that. All right, it's coming.
Okay.
Do you
Excuse
want
me.
to look at it then?
Just get it
I've
back.
just said it will be deferred in order to return to committee in conjunction with B 3024 and all.
I have a question, Mr. Sharp. I have a question. Just a minute, please. In the report, it said D, E, and F be approved, which is that little sliver. And that. Why can't we hear 31, which is that sliver? Because and that, the district, it doesn't matter that property, whichever 50 feet here or 50 feet there is not going to make any difference at all.
Through you, Chair, I believe we have heard B 31, B 30 and 31 are the GAMMON applications. We have heard those.
That's right, but there was some question from the members about why they couldn't approve that one. Planning staff we're recommending approval of what I seen on it.
So I think the sliver or the lot addition that you're referring to, it's going to remove some of the frontage of the parent lot on Muskoka Road 118, and there's a district interest in that, and the district has requested a deferral, and hence staff's recommendation to defer. Thank you.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, I think a little bit of my concern of not knowing why district wants to defer, and again, I would like to move this application forward, is more about an entrance permit. And I don't believe that they're looking for an entrance permit at all. And so I'm happy to move this application forward because what we're approving is off of Browns Road, which is not a district road. And I don't see how,
Excuse me, no, what we were looking at is
I
31.
I know what we're looking at. I'm just saying in the whole two applications, I don't have a problem with us moving forward because there's not going to be an application to district for an entrance permit.
Again,
But we've already deferred the first one, so we'll have to amend that deferral. Excuse me, sorry, we've amended the first matter.
Sliver application.
Oh,
I don't. I'm just saying my reasoning. Sorry, I'm saying my reasoning that I don't have a problem with this is because the applicant has stated that they were not looking for an entrance permit. And that could be in my opinion, the only issue with district at this point, other than that they asked for an entrance to be closed, which I don't think is part of their concern at this moment. I would like to move this application forward.
okay. We can consider that for sure. Counselor?
How many people would like to move it forward or just leave it as it's deferred? Okay, move it forward then. What's this application here? This is going back to the very first one.
First one was 23, I believe. Have I got that wrong?
Well, you're up here. And you're looking at this one here. This is the one we've been, and that's
Oh,
30.
that's
31.
Yeah. Right now, we're doing 31 and the ZBA.
What I thought, and
Maybe
the
I got
one you
that.
handed me,
But now they've said they want to hear it, so,
no, just a minute, the one you just handed me,
okay, well, we're not gonna read this because we're not deferring
Just a
them
minute.
now. Did I get the number wrong? Yeah, I did.
you're going back to the first one. That's why.
Yeah, okay, you're right.
That's, okay, that's what was
Correct.
confusing me.
Yeah, okay, you're there.
I confuse these.
We can clear.
Yes, go ahead. Then we're gonna get a clarification.
Sorry, excuse me. So just for clarification, because this application really gave me some troubles as well. It's very complicated. So I think what the sliver that we're talking about now, B31 and ZBA, in and of itself, yes, it is what it is. However, that sliver is, the purpose of creating that sliver is to accommodate the amount of frontage that is required for the next application that we're hearing, which does require an entrance permit. And so not knowing if the district is going to provide an entrance permit to that second application, it is somewhat, I guess, is it now the time to really be making an application on that sliver if we don't know what the district comments are on the viability of that lot to begin with? If I'm, okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Chair Edwards, we just need your microphone on.
Sorry. And that, so the confusion is 31. I think at this time we'd be better just to defer and get it straightened up because we've been almost 2 hours on this. And get it straightened up. So you have the one that defers that and then we'll go on with it because we're just going around in circles here. And that's right. And go after them, but. So which one do we do now? Do it.
This time you check your. Go back to the table, please.
Back to the table, please. Thank you.
This has gotta stop.
Moved by Councillor Roberts, second by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommend to Township Council the consent application B 3124 ML amended Carmen and ZBA 3724 be deferred in order that it may return to the committee in conjunction with B 3024 ML. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that's carried.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're on to the next application, which is B 3224 ML. That's Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next applications to be heard are concurrent consent application B 3224 ML and zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 3824 in the name of WOODRICH. The subject lands are known municipally as 2756 Muskoka Road, 118 West. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent and zoning sketch on page 86 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of consent application B 3224 ML and zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 3824 are to create one new rural lot being 35 acres in size with 575 feet of frontage on Muskoka Road 118, and to provide exemptions to permit the creation of an additional lot on rural lands to gain exemptions from the minimum lot frontage and area requirements detailed in the township zoning bylaw. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 20 days in advance of this meeting, and 7 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and staff from Hydro One, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, stating that the severance approval should be subject to confirmation from the District of Muskoka that an entrance permit would be available for the severed lot. Comments were received from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, providing fire response times and recommending that the property owners review the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. After the circulation of comments to committee, further comments were received from Cassie Ems, planner at the District Municipality of Muskoka, requesting that the applications be deferred to provide for more time for the review of the applications. A letter of support was also received from Eric and Robert Bourne, residents of 1089 Brown Road, stating no objection to consent application B 3224 and the required zoning amendments to allow for said severance as outlined in the notice circulated to neighboring residents. Letters of support were also provided by the applicant's agents from Stephen Yake and Ellen Gingrass, residents of 2781 Muskoka Road 118 West, and Stan Hunter, resident of 2757 Muskoka District Road West, stating no objection to the applications B 3224 ML and ZBA 3824, and are in full support of continued housing growth in our community. Another letter of support was also provided by the applicant's agent from Lloyd Walton, resident of 2791 Muskoka Road 118 West, stating no objection to the application and that the neighborhood would be enhanced. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. As requested by district planning staff, township staff are recommending that the consent application B 3224 WOODRICH and zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 3824 WOODRICH be deferred to provide further time for the district to review the applications and provide amended comments. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much. And looking at this, we basically should be deferring this one for the simple fact that they didn't get the land added to it to make the frontage that they needed. But we will let the agent come up and explain it. Thank you.
Wait, stop shutting. Um, so this, of course, is part of the whole application. I believe that the sliver is a condition of this application anyway, so I don't know that it needs to be deferred. I think because it's a condition, it won't come into effect until that happens anyway. So we would love for this to sort of move forward if possible. And as far as we had there was a pre-consult done on this application. And one of the requests was that an entrance permit be looked into with the district, which it was, which they wrote a letter back and said that, yes, there is availability for an entrance permit on the severed lot. So that's been done. So I'm not sure what's going on here, to be honest, but there you have it. So we would really appreciate this moving forward at this time, and we can deal with the other matter in the meantime. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have to ask, is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Questions from the members? None? Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you. Through you to planning staff. The applicant's agent has offered a solution here. Does that, can we do that? The condition, we believe, we don't know what's going on in the district, but we know the district, we now know the district has said that they can have an entrance. It is conditional on the other sliver of land being added. This might take a month off of this application if we could at least approve it now or see our way. So my question is to staff, is there a way we could make that happen?
Who would like to answer that? Go ahead, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The one application that was just deferred, B31, would have added lands to the WOODRICH property, having the effect of increasing the frontage of what would become the retained lot in this application. So I suppose the risk of proceeding with B32 at this time would be that you would be essentially approving a lot creation with a retained lot that would be undersized. And of course, we'd need to amend or include an exemption to the bylaw that you've already deferred. So I think at this point, I think, as I had indicated, it's best to defer these applications or this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, just in response to Mr. Sharp, or a question for Mr. Sharp, from what I understood, the applicant's agent to say, if we approve this now, we approve the lot creation, but it's made conditional on the additional grant of land, which we've deferred elsewhere. So nothing, in fact, is approved on an undersized basis. It's approved on the condition that at some point in the future, it qualifies with the addition of the additional land. Unless I misunderstood, that's how I understand it. It would go down.
Mr. Sharp?
Through you, Chair. Sorry, I just need a moment to gather my thoughts here. Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, and reflecting upon the conditions, it does, we have recommended that application B31 be finalized and a consent certificate be registered on title, which would mean that application, which has been deferred, would need to be ultimately approved and finalized. I guess what's running through my mind is that the zoning bylaw amendment application, it needs to be approved as part of this consent application as well. And that application's been deferred. So I'm just wondering, perhaps there's the ability to, if committee wanted to proceed with this application. Okay, never mind. There is a condition requiring the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment application. So I think I think it could work if that's what committee opts to do, if they wanted to proceed with the application. But I think, again, staff would recommend that it be deferred for the district's further comments. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Osmerth.
Just one more question to Mr. Sharp. Is there any advantage to the applicant if we followed that route? In other words, would they get, would it get to, if we, is there any advantage to the applicant on if we went that route? That's my question.
Any advantage to the applicant if we followed the route of a deferral?
No, if we followed the route of a conditional approval.
Through you, Chair, I suppose one advantage would be perhaps getting the applications a recommendation of approval to council a little sooner. Personally, if it were me, I'd be more leaning towards the deferral, just to make sure that I wasn't going to run into any issues with respect to the other severance that has been deferred. Sort of a chicken and egg thing, so to speak. So that would be my comment, top of mind, Councillor Bosworth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Could we hear from the applicant? I don't.
Yeah, no, we can hear.
With respect, I would like to hear that.
But okay, would you like to come up?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. State my name, Marcia Gammon, 1048 Brown Road, Port Carling, P0B1J0. It would be helpful to further this application. Time may not be as important to some as others, but this is more of an urgent matter. The first application that I submitted, part of it is not time sensitive, but this sliver of land and moving forward with the severance at 2756 is an urgent matter. And defer. Let's get something done today. I'm just anxious to see something move forward. That makes perfect sense. And a condition of the sliver of land being approved is, completely acceptable. We're not trying to recreate the wheel here. So this is an easy one. The other one, not so much, but anyway, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? You've heard what the applicant would like.
Chair?
Yes, sorry.
A question to Mr. Sharp again, I guess, is would it be possible to take a defer route or a defer route, but bring it back to planning? Bring it back to council rather than through planning, just because we're just missing a condition. Would that make you feel better?
Through you, Chair. No, I don't think so. I think, if there was a deferral, staff's preference would be to be in keeping with typical process, which would mean that would return as an unfinished business item to planning committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I think there's a fair amount of consensus around the table that we can approve this one today. So let's get on with it. Oh, that was a question. I raised my voice.
Okay. Has everyone read it?
So it's okay to read this written? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's messy, but it's okay. Councillor Nishikawa. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, second by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommend to Township Council that consent application B 3224 ML Woodridge be approved, subject to the following conditions. One, that a satisfactory registrable description deed of the severed lot, together with any required rights of way or easement, be submitted to the township, along with the registered plan of the reference plan. That confirmation be received from the township that the retained and severed lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. That cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created lot, or the entire lands, whichever is less. And confirmation be received from the District of Muskoka that an entrance permit is available for the severed lot, and that the application B3124 ML GAMMON be finalized and consent certificate registered on title. That the location of the propane tank not indicated on the submitted consent sketch be confirmed, and if necessary, be brought into compliance with the applicable zoning requirements, or alternatively removed, and that a rezoning be approved to address the rural lot creation requirements, including minimum lot frontage and lot area requirements. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
You didn't call opposed, Chair. I oppose.
Sorry. Oh, and anyone opposed? Sorry. So you're opposed. Okay, thank you. Okay. And moved by Councillor Kent, and second by Councillor Roberts, be it resolved that Planning Committee recommend to Township Council that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 3824 Woodridge be approved. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Okay, so now we're going to skip over A10, 10A, 10B, and 11A. And we're going to go to unfinished business. That's 14A. That's ZBA 1924.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. We can just get the presentation put up on the screen. Okay. So the next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1924 in the name of Osborne. The subject lands are known municipally as 1805 Peninsula Road, unit number 375. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted zoning sketches on pages 137 and 138 of the agenda package. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1924 is to permit a portion of the first story of an existing two-story boathouse to be converted into a recreational and leisure space, define the use of a recreational and leisure space, and to limit the gross floor area of the proposed recreational and leisure space to 340 square feet. Next slide, please. As committee may recall, a background report on the application was originally brought forward to Planning Committee on July 11th, 2024. Planning Committee decided to defer the application until such time as public and agency comments be received, and directed staff to then undertake a review and analysis of the submissions with a view to providing a recommendation to Planning Committee on the application. Next slide, please. A summary of the requested exemptions is available in Table 1 of the initial background report and in the circulation materials. The staff report before committee provides an analysis of various considerations regarding the first-story boathouse recreational and leisure space. These considerations include limitations of enforcement, impacts to septic capacity, Ontario Building Code requirements non-compliances, privacy, noise, and compatibility impacts, and impacts to character. Next slide, please. It is staff's position that official plan policy L15.3C, and in particular inclusion of the word may, is intended to convey the enabling intent of the policy. Implementation or lack thereof is intended to be considered through the township's exercise of updating its comprehensive zoning bylaw, which is now in progress. It is further staff's position that if through the comprehensive zoning bylaw update, council determines that first-story recreational floor area is appropriate, the following matters should be contemplated and addressed: corresponding definitions, size limitations, percentage of area inside the first story of a boathouse required to be open to the water below, locational and/or property size criteria, considerations related to flooding, servicing, and the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, permissions surrounding recreational uses within land-based buildings and two-story boathouses, and enforcement. These considerations and others speak to the need to consider the proposed use on a comprehensive municipal-wide basis versus a site-specific basis. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be deferred until such time as matters relating to the limited first-story recreational use of boathouses is considered, and direction provided as part of the in-progress municipal-wide update to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Staff have no further comments at this time, and I'm happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And do we have the agent or applicants here wish to speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair Edwards. My name is Ryan Allen, a professional planner with Planscape, 104 Kimberley Ave, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1Z8. I'm representing the Osshorns. I was in front of you previously at a public meeting where I presented the application, including a presentation with photos. I don't intend to repeat myself. Given that staff has brought back the application for further consideration, I think it's important to consider that this property has a lot of frontage and a lot of area. It's permitted a two-story boathouse. It's not on a narrow water body. It's on Lake Joseph. If there is any property that a lower level lounge space would be permitted in the boathouse, this is one of them. So beyond that, I think I've positioned the applications through my planning justification report. And I would just conclude by saying that, I agree with the comments included in the staff report. I'm not overly concerned about the use of the first story of the boathouse for relaxation. It is the concerns related to and the difficulties related to enforcement that are the principal challenge here. I'm happy to answer any questions. My client would appreciate approval of the application, but I see that deferral is recommended. I'd be happy to discuss if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Questions from the members?
Thank you, through you. So, what a dichotomy. Here we are again with the same two deferrals. Next one as well, if I might include them both. Is staff bringing this forward because this is how it gets into the scope of the comprehensive zoning bylaw review? Or are we going to have these come forward these two files come forward every couple of months? And I have a supplemental.
Yes, Ms. Browder.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Thank you for the question, Councillor Zavitz. This application is being brought forward because it has been applied for, and it is a requirement to bring the application forward once it's been applied for. The deferral, as staff have recommended, is that this be deferred until the matter dealt with on the comprehensive zoning, through the comprehensive zoning bylaw update. So no, you wouldn't see this in a couple of months. Ideally, you wouldn't see the application until after the zoning bylaw has been updated to reflect this matter. Potentially at that time, the application may no longer be needed, but that depends on how the zoning bylaw update process plays out.
If I might supplemental.
Yes.
So you could drive around Battle Bay in your boat, and I did that very recently. And there was
We're at questions now.
question. So
And we're talking about this application.
fine. I'm
Thank
talking
you.
about the application of
Okay.
access, usability on the water in a boathouse, as we've just seen on this file.
Yes.
Which, if I might, to staff, I'm wondering why the people that construct these aren't getting that message. I guess, I guess my question would be, is there dialogue with the building public on this issue? Because they continue to, they're growing, they're building them everywhere, against what clearly is our mandate. And I'm just wondering why are we having discussions in that regard?
Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards, to Councillor Zavitz, I think that the conversations happen when building permits are submitted. If there's space shown within the first story of boathouses that doesn't comply with boathouses and our zoning provisions, then staff are providing those zoning provisions and clarification on what is and isn't permitted. I think the conversations are happening in the planning department when people come to our counter and inquire as to what is permitted and what's not in their boathouses. And I think the conversation happens through enforcement when complaints are received and bylaw officers investigate properties and attend and potentially witness non-compliances or compliances. I think the conversation is happening at that time too.
Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you. Through you, and I'm not sure who this would be directed to. My concern with this application, and much along the line what Councillor Zavitz was trying to say, is we have many, many of these where I don't understand why we would be deferring, waiting on this particular application to see what's going to happen down the road with any other changes that we're making in the municipality. We don't hold up other applications. You just hang on and we'll make the changes months and months down the road. It doesn't sit well with me, this. And in fact, I questioned the whole conversation about a one-story boathouse or one level, the main level of a boathouse from the provincial perspective. It was always understood that you could not construct a living quarter when you apply through the ministry. I will say, way back when you had to apply through the ministry, you were not allowed to build any type of quarters. You could have a washroom facility and a fish station kind of thing. But we see a whole lot different today. I am not clear though why we're being asked to defer this application for something that may or may not change down the road. And in fact, since we already went through this process, more or less, we got some of these comments when we did our OP. I don't see, if we're not going to allow housing in the rural areas, why would we be doing something different? And so I don't understand what the recommendation was. I know I'm trying, I'm asking, I'm wondering why this recommendation came forward.
Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards, it's Councillor Nishikawa. Thank you for your question. I think that in the official plan, the policy that has been written uses the word may, and that wording opens the door for discussion at the time of the zoning bylaw update, which hasn't happened yet. Now, if there was official plan work policy saying that this use shall not be permitted, then I think staff's position would be that the application be denied. However, that's not the wording, and the decision hasn't necessarily been made yet. I think that staff also, there was a similar application, if you recall, that came forward, and it was an on-land recreational floor area. And staff took a similar approach, stating that, you know, this type of use hasn't been dealt with yet at the zoning bylaw level, and that those discussions with the community around the council table should be had on a fulsome municipal-wide level rather before making site-specific decisions. So from staff's perspective, this is the most defensible recommendation that we could put forward. Yes, I see Mr. Sharp maybe wants to add something.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp.
Yes, thank you, Chair Edwards, and thank you, Ms. Crowder, for that explanation. I think staff would acknowledge in this case that this is a difficult application, or these are difficult applications. And Ms. Crowder is correct. There is a policy in the official plan that says that the implementing zoning bylaw may permit this type of use in the first story of a boathouse. Typically, what would happen is the comprehensive zoning bylaw would be amended to reflect consideration of that policy through zoning. And there would be criteria put in place, and the wider community would be engaged and consulted on with respect to whether this is appropriate or not. And council would ultimately have to make a difficult decision. If the decision was to permit this type of use, there'd be likely some criteria put around it. How much frontage would the property need to have? Would it be permitted if there was already say a sleeping cabin in the upper level of the two-story boathouse? What would be the size? How would the Ontario Building Code be considered? Those are all considerations that would need to be made. And I think staff are hesitant to recommend approval of this application, because I think it could set somewhat of a precedent or handcuff those conversations going forward. If the application is approved, that precedent has been set, and it may implicate those conversations. And again, I think, you know, we've heard and we know that this type of use is happening throughout the township. We're trying to enforce it, but it is certainly happening, and there may be an appetite for it. And I think it's really something that we would prefer to engage the community, the broader township community on, versus, you know, approving a one-off site-specific application or applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, supplemental?
Well, it's been very complicated, and I'm still in favor of denying this application, and that's how I wanted it to be read. I do not believe we've had these other people have come forward and things, and we've denied them. I think what we're hearing is a different, let's call it a recreation area as opposed to, and before we didn't label it that, but in fact, it is all that same use. And so you know, if it's a duck kind of thing. And I do believe that at this point, I don't believe this particular application should deserve any different treatment than we have done previous, and that it should be voted on whether it gets denied or not. And that down the road, when we do get at things, that's a very different conversation, and that we should not be holding up an application, whether we deny or not. We shouldn't be holding it up just because we may make changes down the road, because I'm suggesting that it may not be the direction that we're going to approve all this. I don't ever want anybody to think that we're holding this up so we can wait till we approve it.
Thank you. Now, is this a question or a comment? If it's a comment, I'll read the,
Yeah, I think we should.
then I am going to read it because we're
mind.
getting into, oh,
Yeah, we're.
just a second. Go ahead. Question?
I have a question. Thank you, sir, through you. And I guess to our CAO, who was the architect, if you will, of our OP, here we find ourselves, and I can't disagree with Councilor Nishikawa at all. I mean, defer seems like a silly way to go. I mean, this thing should, to my mind, I mean, we can't do anything but deny it. And if we do deny it, so my question to the CAO would be, what happens next? Yeah.
Thank you, through the chair. Should committee wish to deny the application, that's certainly one of the options and your prerogative. I think staff's suggesting it could be deferred to keep the application in play. However, certainly you're within your rights to deny. What would happen next is it would open up a notice of decision would be released, a notice of refusal, and the applicant would have the right to appeal that decision.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on Mr. Pink's comments. I'm not sure if it was captured, but I would just note that if the application is deferred, the applicant could appeal a lack of decision as well. So I just wanted to make that clear.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, but the only thing is staff are recommending a deferral to give them a chance. So if the zoning bylaws change it and that. Okay. Moved by Councillor Zabit, second by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved, the planning committee recommend to Township Council that a decision on zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1924 Ocean be deferred until such time as matters relating to the limited first-story recreational use of a boathouse is considered and direction provided as part of the in progress municipal-wide update on the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Any questions or comments? Yes. Okay, well, first of all, we'll take
Thank you. And I'm not sure who this is to, but it's a comment. I think that I agree with Councillor Nishikawa. We run the risk of them appealing whether we deny it or we defer it. So therefore, I think the policy allows us to deny it now. They can come back a year and a half from now when we have a new, plan, a new bylaw, and reapply on the proper conditions at that time. No point in letting it sit there because we could have a whole inventory of these by the time we get around to approving a new bylaw. I mean, we could have 10 more of these come in over the next couple of weeks just to sit on the shelf and wait for us to deal with them a year and a half from now. And I think there's an element of pressure that comes from these kind of applications. It would be better to defer it, make our decision clean. They can, deny it and they can come back, is my view.
Councillor Bosworth.
Thank you. I agree with staff. I think this should be deferred. This is very similar to the Saunders case. Use on first floor of boathouses is even more, I think, more contentious, in my opinion, than the secondary recreational use of buildings on land. I would hope that the applicant would see to it that it's not worth going to the OLT, and it's probably very much worth waiting until we get a comprehensive zoning bylaw, because they may not have an issue at all. And I think there's maybe a little bit more probability that would happen if we defer. If we don't defer, it really doesn't give the applicant too many options other than go to OLT. So I would agree with staff, and I think we should defer.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts, did you have it? Okay. Yes.
Thank you, through you. This is kind of a question and a comment. Based on what I'm hearing from Manager Sharp and CAO Pink, what it sounds to me is like it's the whole will versus shall or thing. And if it doesn't say shall, my concern is this is going to go to the tribunal and we're going to get a decision that says, yeah, if it doesn't say shall, you can go ahead and do this. And then we're going to get this little hump of these cases until we can get the comprehensive zoning bylaw in place. And that's a concern for me if that's what you're trying to say.
Mr. Sharp, would you like to answer
No,
that? Or?
That's not what you're trying to say.
Through you, Chair Edwards. To Councillor McIntyre, I might have some insight, but I think that this came up a couple months ago. But if there was a concern around that policy in the official plan, which has been approved now, this council would have the option, should they wish to do so, of an official plan amendment to change that policy. If council's intent is to not have the discussion on it. As it's currently written, it states that those discussions will happen at the zoning review stage, and that policy hasn't been tested at OLT yet. So
yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I think in essence, as Councillor Bosworth put it, we're essentially with a deferral giving the applicant an opportunity for the application essentially to be held in abeyance for the comprehensive zoning bylaw update process to play out. We recognize that that's not going to happen overnight, but I guess we just see that as possibly an opportunity. And I don't know whether they would agree with it. There's no denying that the applicant has appeal rights in either case. If you defeat it, the applicant can appeal. If you defer it, the applicant can still appeal. And ultimately, if it comes down to the township having to attend a hearing, then, I don't want to foreshadow, but, a decision would need to be made at that point. And there's always the risk of an OLT decision, whatever that may be. So I don't know necessarily if you asked a question or if you were just asking more for our commentary, but I think that's the best that I can do at this point. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, my concern about a deferral is that we end up telegraphing to our bylaw enforcement people that this isn't worth pursuing, at least for the next couple of years, and maybe a disincentive for them to actually actively go out and look for and try to charge people who are in the wrong here. I really don't think that's the desired outcome of this decision. So I would tend to agree with Councillor Nishikawa on this.
Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
I'm just asking staff, maybe when this comes back to council, or sooner, if staff could provide us what comments from the ministry. And because I feel like I don't have an understanding about what a first floor boathouse, what is allowed anymore from the ministry. And, it's interesting because some of the conversations were about, well, we would be drafting a whole bunch of information. We already have that information. Basically, boathouses, this happens within boathouses that are not allowed a two-story boathouse. That's what the majority of it. So we already know those parameters and all of those types of things. Lots under 300, for instance, on Lake Muskoka. But I'm very interested, and I think it would be good for the rest of council to actually understand M&Rs, like comments on that first story level of boathouse when people have not purchased the property.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I could perhaps speak to that point. What the official plan policy envisions is a permission for limited recreational use of the first floor of a boathouse. Limited recreational use hasn't been defined. This official plan has been approved by the district. The district reviewed our official plan, not only for district interests, but for provincial interests as well. And it was ultimately approved. This policy has been approved. I think what is somewhat difficult is our zoning bylaw treats the proposed use as a habitable use. But by definition, which Mr. Allen and the applicant have put forward, it's in a way not habitable. So our zoning bylaw hasn't been updated yet, which would typically need to be done in order to permit this type of use through the comprehensive zoning bylaw update. I think more importantly is are we, you know, happy with the definition that's put forward as part of this application? If it was approved, again, it would be setting somewhat of a precedent on a go forward basis that would be an appropriate definition across the township. So again, that's one of the difficulties of the application and one of the I guess drawbacks of an approval. But I just wanted to you know, sort of provide a bit of clarity with respect to how this policy came to be and how the province has played into the review of our official plan and this policy specifically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I guess I will just make one. The staff have recommended deferring this so we can get the comprehensive zoning bylaw straightened out and that it may or may not make it. That by defeating it now or approving it now, well, defeating it now would go to the land tribunal. The applicant can use it as is now until a decision is made. And let's get it straight first of all before we go to this, because we may be approving this in the future, we may not. At least we'll have a better standing. Is that right, Mr. Sharp? That's why you're asking for a deferral?
Well, I think we're recommending a deferral because I think, you know, at the end of the day, the applicants may agree with the deferral. I can't say, perhaps Mr. Allen in this case could speak to that. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, that may be, we may be able to avoid, you know, a hearing in front of the OLT if the applicants were to agree. That's one benefit of a deferral. If you outright deny the application, again, the owner could appeal as well. But it certainly closes the door to a deferral and leaving the application in abeyance for the comprehensive zoning bylaw process to be completed. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you. If we defer and then so therefore a lack of decision, from what I understand, the comprehensive zoning bylaw review could be, I think to the mayor's words, possibly 2 years, the rest of our term. So are we not then subject to this particular owner or other owners simply going to OLT because we haven't made a decision?
I would like to answer that.
Through you, Chair. Yes, certainly. If you opt to defer, the applicant could appeal. So I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, unfortunately. I don't know if Mr. Allen can provide any insight into his client's intentions, but you know, those are my comments at this point.
Okay. Sorry, we got so much. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Zavitz. I think what we can say is that from staff's perspective, our recommendation to defer is on the basis that the official plan policy at this time does not say you shall not have any recreational floor area. If that were the case, I think it would be very clear. Staff's position would be that the application be denied right here. The policy as it's written says that it may be considered at the time of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So I think that hopefully provides some clarification on why staff are recommending that the application be deferred until that process play out. I think what Mr. Sharp was conveying is that if the application is denied, we certainly don't know, but the odds of it being appealed are probably pretty high. And if it is deferred for this process to play out, we don't know. And perhaps we can look to Mr. Allen to confirm whether he would be agreeable to the deferral at this time. Thank you.
Okay, since you've asked the question, first of all, I'll go to Councillor Bosworth. And then
I have a question to Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, what are your client's thoughts about going about if we defer? What is his feelings about going to the OLT for lack of decision.
Thank you, through you, Chair Edwards. I think he was hoping, maybe last stretch for the application to be approved. We haven't discussed any details about filing an appeal. So I'm not aware of any motivations on his part. Sorry if I can't be providing more information there.
Okay.
Thank you, through you. I think to what Ms. Crowder has just discussed or mentioned to us and given her excellent report, I do think it's important to note that it was very insightful, very helpful. I don't think we have any recourse but to deny. Quite honestly, the public is watching. The public, right now, here and now, the comprehensive zoning bylaw review just started, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but right now, I don't know that we have any recourse but to deny this application. I mean, if we're asking the agent, we're putting him on the spot. And so my concern is we as a council simply need, or as I guess in this role, as a planning committee, we need to set the rules. We've already done that. We have an OP in place. I think everybody supported it. And so my thought would be is we have no recourse but to deny this application or any other application that comes forward until we change the rule, the direction. And right now, I would suggest that we deny this. And then my next question is, Mr. Allen, what's your client going to do with the denial? And nobody's ripping there on their boathouse. So, we're at an impasse. This is new and high noon. And as far as I'm concerned, I think we send a message to the public with the denial at this point in time with the information in front of us. That's where we are. That's where the council should be, or committee should be. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I'm sorry. My concern is that I didn't give permission for a change in our zoning bylaw. And I want that opportunity to happen. And in my experience, it does take a number of years. And today, I don't want, as the mayor has raised, I don't want, for instance, anyone to think that what has happened in many of our first story boathouses, it is a legal thing. We've always had this for many, like 25, 30 years kind of thing. We've always had rules about the first story of a boathouse. And I don't think that we start changing it because one application came forward without having the fulsome discussions that we do during these bylaw discussions. But I just think this has gotten really off track, and I really want the question to be asked or an explanation for others that are voting of what happens when they put their hand up the way that it's read. So just so it's clear.
Anyone else?
I made this point before, which is I support Councilor Nishikawa completely. We're gonna have a pile of these piling up. Let's cut it off. Let's keep people from deferring. If we actually have an appeal, we have to deal with that. But at this point in time, we need to be firm, go through the process properly, and then they're gonna have to reapply anyway with a completed new application that somehow, if it does fit into the new bylaw, conforms. So my view is we should deny this.
Okay. Yes.
If I might, through you, I don't think the word's clear. I think
excuse me. I'm sorry, I've had my hand up for a little while.
Sorry.
I would like to make a comment.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I respectfully disagree with anybody who thinks that we should deny it because, that's what our bylaw says. Our official plan has opened that door. There's an enabling clause in there that says we may, which means I frankly don't think that we can deny it because it says we may. And I think, so that's point one. And point two is, if we deny it, that's being very confrontational with an applicant. And as we have been pointed out, there may be many others in this situation. I would like to be more accommodating and offer a route where the applicant perhaps doesn't have to do anything as long as they're willing to wait until we have the comprehensive zoning bylaw. then they may have no further action to be taken whatsoever, depending on the outcome of the zoning application bylaw. I also think that deferring it will stop any other people coming forward because they're going to get the same answer. If we deny it, we are giving the applicant only one option. Otherwise, they're going to be against the bylaw and they're risk getting more and more, some visits by the bylaw officer. I agree that it's unfortunate that maybe over the next couple of years, it's not, the bylaw officers are not going to be enforcing our law, but our law is partly defined by the OP. And the OP has an enabling clause in there. I think we should take staff's advice and defer it. And that is the best of a fairly, not great set of options we have in front of us, but that's the best for the township. Thank you.
Anyone else? I would say I would agree with the staff. They're asking for a deferral. The applicant then can use it until we make a decision. So it's to his best interest to have it deferred. And that if we turn it down, we're going to be going to the old LPAT. It's going to cost a fortune. And that to fight these, if we defer it, we get our zoning bylaws how we want them. We can make a bylaw, we can make a amendment to the official plan at that time. But this leaves us open as far as I'm concerned, but I will read the resolution.
I think you did read it. So.
You've already read it.
Yeah,
Okay.
So you just need to cover it.
So I've read it. It says deferred. All those in favor of a deferral?
6, 7.
All opposed? That is carried. Okay, and the next one. I guess we should hear it. And that is Ms. Crowder, and that's ZBA 2124 Clark.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2124 in the name of Clark. The subject lands are known municipally as 1141 Morinus Road, unit number 6. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted zoning sketches on pages 178 and 179 of the agenda package. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2124 is to permit a portion of the first story of an existing single-story boathouse to be converted into a recreational and leisure space, define the use of a recreational and leisure space, and to limit the gross floor area of the proposed recreational and leisure space to 565.1 square feet. Next slide, please. As committee may recall, a background report on the application was originally brought forward to Planning Committee on July 11th, 2024. Planning Committee decided to defer the application until such time as public and agency comments be received and directed staff to then undertake a review and analysis of the submissions with a view to providing a recommendation to Planning Committee on the application. Next slide, please. A summary of the requested exemptions are available in Table 1 of the initial background report and in the circulation materials. The staff report before committee provides an analysis of various considerations regarding the request for first-story boathouse recreational and leisure space. These considerations include limitations of enforcement, impacts to septic capacity, Ontario Building Code requirement non-compliances, privacy, noise, and compatibility impacts, and impacts to character. Next slide, please. It is staff's position that official plan policy L15.3C, and in particular inclusion of the word may, is intended to convey the enabling intent of the policy. Implementation or lack thereof is intended to be considered through the township's exercise of updating its comprehensive zoning bylaw, which is now in progress. It is further staff's position that if through the comprehensive zoning bylaw update, council determines that first-story recreational floor area is appropriate, the following matters should be contemplated and addressed: corresponding definitions, size limitations, percentage of area inside the first story of a boathouse required to be open to the water below, locational and/or property size criteria, considerations related to flooding, servicing, and the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, permissions surrounding recreational uses within land-based buildings and two-story boathouses, and enforcement. These considerations and others speak to the need to consider the proposed use on a comprehensive municipal-wide basis versus a site-specific basis. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be deferred until such time as matters relating to the limited first-story recreational use of boathouses is considered, and direction provided as part of the in-progress municipal-wide update to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll bring the agent in.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Deja vu. I do not have any additional comments to make further than the comments I made on the previous application. My contact information has not changed since.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to ask, is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? I can ask questions from the members, or we can go right and read it and then have comments and questions if you like. Okay. Excuse me. Moved by Councillor Burry, second by Councillor Kent, and be it resolved, Planning Committee recommend to Township Council that a decision on zoning bylaw amendment application said be a 2124 car be deferred until such time as matters relating to the limited first-story recreational use of a boathouse is considered, and direction provided as part of an in-progress municipal-wide update on the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Any questions or comments? Yes.
So if a neighbor complains about their neighbor's first-story boathouse and the recreational use and or whatever word you want to put in it, what does our bylaw officer do now?
Have to ask.
Are they on hold? Like, I'm not sure. Are they on hold?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Short. Okay, well, who would like to answer that?
I'll start the question, I think, if that's okay. Through you, Chair, Councillor Nishikawa. I have been in touch with the bylaw department as there is an ongoing enforcement matter on this particular property. And it is scheduled for trial November 13th. So
Discuss this property. I didn't want to discuss any. I don't know that, by the way, the information you're bringing forward, I have no idea about that. We're not allowed to have that information. So I'm just saying, I wanted in general, what are we telling our bylaw officers
Yes,
moving
Mr. Sharp.
forward?
Okay, Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair, to my knowledge, the application or your decision today makes no difference with respect to our enforcement. Staff will continue to enforce the bylaw, and if there's found to be a non-compliance, then those individuals would have the opportunity to apply to recognize it through planning approval, similar to the applicant has done in this case. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I've read the motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried.
Thanks, committee. I hope you've got your sunscreen ready for the next few days.
Thank you.
Okay. How long will you be? You want to take a lunch break or? Go through it? Okay. I don't think we'll take a lunch break. I've been told it wouldn't take too long to go through the remaining. If everyone is agreement with that. Okay.
It's really difficult to hear the chair from over here.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Huff, and then you can go ahead with that. Thank you.
Can almost say good afternoon, committee. This report, staff report plan 2024-143 provides some information in respect to the provincial planning statement 2024 and some new proposed regulations in respect of additional residential unit regulations put out by the province. So as the committee knows, planning in Ontario is very much directed by provincial policies. And so the province sets those policies, and then all local municipalities and upper tiers need to ensure that their own planning policies need to be consistent with the province. And so when they make changes, it does have an impact on municipalities across Ontario. And so the province has recently finalized the process of updating their provincial policy statement. It's now called the Provincial Planning Statement to clarify, I guess, its purpose. It does come into effect October 20th. So any decisions that are made after that date, those decisions have to be consistent with the policies within that document, whether or not your local documents have been updated. My report goes into some detail on some of the changes since the various versions of those have been released during the process. Happy to answer any questions on those. My report also details some new provincial regulations that have been put out there for consultation, and that's in respect to propose additional residential units. So this is a creature of the province as well, where in a few years ago, they have created the opportunity for local zoning rules and regulations to be superseded by provincial regulation in this regard. And so the province has directed that in single detached, semi-detached or row house dwellings in areas that have full municipal services and within settlement boundaries can have up to 3 units on their property. That's already in place. And what they've now proposed is some additional regulations that would override additional regulations that municipalities may have on that. And so again, my report details those. Many of those won't apply or have limited impacts to the township. There are 1 or 2 that we may see an effect of. But I can say generally in speaking to the building department already that we haven't seen much uptake of these at this point yet, even though it's been in effect for a number of years. So there's a lot of detail in the report. I'm happy to answer any questions on those at this time, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Berry.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and through you to Director Huff. The one piece that is concerning for me is the floor space index. And, many lakefront people have lots and lots of property in the back, and we've got a 7,500 square foot per level, which, limits these poor McMansions to 15,000 square feet. I'm wondering what tools we will have as a township if, in fact, the floor space index is eliminated and we could see some very, very large buildings on very large lots.
Absolutely. Thank you through the chair to committee members. So I think that is something that we are concerned about as well. The benefit that we have right now is the fact that we are going through our comprehensive zoning bylaw review. And so we want to find those tools to make sure that we're still able to control lot coverage and floor area index in some way with respect to these things. So it's on the horizon for something that we're going to delve into as part of that project.
Supplemental. Thank you. Does this not combined with maybe some of the other pieces like the main floor use of a boathouse create a sense of urgency that we should really be getting on this comprehensive zoning bylaw in a matter of single-digit months, not years?
Through the chair to committee member and members. Sorry. So absolutely. I think certainly the tone from the province is set that we need more housing as soon as possible. We do have a consultation plan with the zoning bylaw update process. We do want to make sure that there is a fulsome level of consultation, but certainly I think it's, and perhaps CAO or manager can step in, but I think it is a priority to get this project done as quickly as what we can to make sure that we have the rules and regulations out there that are flexible and allow for more housing to be constructed in more timely fashion.
Yeah.
No, I think my point is more on the waterfront residential that are used for, 8 weeks or 12 weeks, maybe a year. That's not creating additional housing. And if we start to look at things like the floor space index, where we could have these, relatively massive energy hogs of homes, that may be an opinion, but lots of them aren't, they're summer, but they're very big, and that's not putting any additional housing into our rural spaces or our urban spaces. And is there a way that we can, I feel that we as a township, there's some pretty threatening provincial policy statements in what I see that don't recognize that we've got kind of a different kind of space, which it includes some waterfront properties where people have enough money to do whatever they want. And that's not helping our housing problem. And I understand, this to me is a kind of a sledgehammer putting in a finishing tack on a canoe. And it is not going to end up well. So I'm really looking forward, are there things that we should be very concerned about getting a move on to ensure that we can protect what our valuable resource is, which is the tourism and ecotourism and the quality of the lakefront.
Sure. Through the chair. So if I understand, you're essentially wondering if there are certain aspects that can be pulled out of that project and dealt with as early as possible. And I believe that conversation was also one amongst the steering committee of that very project as well. I think they did go into some discussion. The manager was also there. I don't know if he had some additional comments on whether or not, I don't believe the committee directed that certain aspects be pulled out, but that was a conversation we were going to have at our next committee meeting.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I may be able to just dampen some of the concerns. It's my understanding that I think the concern coming from Councillor Burry is with respect to how some of these changes could implicate waterfront residential development. The additional residential units, that would apply to only urban residential land. So it would largely apply to our two urban centers. Of course, there are some waterfront lots within our urban centers, but I just thought I'd perhaps mention that because it would largely only apply to additional residential units in our urban centers, which are serviced by municipal water and service or sewer in large part. So hopefully that helps dampen some of your concerns. Thank you.
Okay, now, Councillor Zapik.
Thank you, through you to the director. Very interested in the ARU aspect to this, and you wouldn't be aware, you're new, welcome. That for quite some time, we as a council, certainly as a planning committee, have been waiting for an inventory of township-owned properties in both Bala and Port Carling. I mean, in the interest piece to that is very simply, are you aware of that? And do we have a handle on assets of the township in these two centers that we could exploit and develop? Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. Simply, I'm not at this point in time, but I would defer to the CAO on that matter.
Mr. Sharp and then Mr. Pink.
Thank you, through you. Staff is aware of the previous request to see that. Staff is working on a land acquisition and disposition policy, so those details in that policy will come back in due course. That's on certainly my list, my new list. But with respect to specific lands in Bala and Port Carling, both the previous Heritage and Attainable Housing Committee and more recently the District of Muskoka did do a review and analysis of municipally owned lands in Bala and Port Carling and did not identify any surplus lands suitable for attainable housing development, township owned.
Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you, but I will speak on that. So I'm on the housing committee. Some of you may know that. We did look at, and Terry Ledger, if she was still here, has looked at all kinds of opportunities, as well as interesting. And I'll speak about Bala. You can sort of tell also about Port Carling. The lots are very small. And because I've approached a few people, can you add sort of thing? And here, by the way, the district will help you financially because we have to look at the financial piece as well. There just isn't the opportunity. The lots are already small. They've been subdivided when and where, and I think there was recently one last year off of River Street, and it is the tiniest lot and difficulty building. But I'm just saying, the adding on additional or it's not happening in our centers, and I think my concern is that how do we make it either we expand our centers, which was discussed in the for instance, if I was just to look around, expand, like again, Bala, it's interesting because there's really only, if you go towards Moon River Road, there's a few acreages there that are owned, like for instance, Pratt's, but there's not a lot of opportunity there. I think our opportunity, and I don't know when we get to have the conversation of what this council would permit in a rural setting. And that's not what we're being asked today or anything, but we need to have that conversation because that is the reality of most of our accommodations.
Yes, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, just to address the last two issues. The inventory of public land and the ARUs really are two separate issues. The ARUs are intended to give individual homeowners the opportunity to build a granny suite in their backyard or do a basement conversion to an apartment. I know there's not a lot of progress if you look at them one-on-one, but if every second house in Port Carling were able to develop a granny suite and a backyard or a basement, we'd be doubling the housing stock on service land in the urban center of Port Carling in a matter of a couple of years with some public support to get things moving, but essentially, at the cost and at the trouble of the individual homeowner. The separate sort of unused plots of land that are publicly owned, separate issue. To the extent there are none available right now, I'm just not convinced that we don't have ARU development because we haven't promoted it. We haven't really stepped into it and pushed hard to make people realize A, that it can be done, and B, that it can be subsidized.
Supplemental.
We actually have had applications come forward. Interestingly, again, it was more because people were looking for that funding model from the district. And our policies are not aligned very well and make it very difficult for people to apply for that program. And then therefore, again, it's the starting off. Now, whether our township itself wants to create a fund of some sort to help that start. You know, the reality is that we are now talking about $500 a square foot, whatever you're doing. That's the low end. That is not available to most people that are earning $100,000 a year to live in Muskoka. So how do we help, or can we even help? And that's why I keep looking at. So for instance, we talk about tiny homes. We talked about, and I don't want to use the word tiny, smaller structures, for instance, 650 square feet, for instance. We know, and the province has actually even advertised it. We know that there can be 5 of those structures on one septic system. We've seen it done in Humphrey. And so that's what I'm suggesting is if we could change our policies. So if somebody has 40 acres and they're able to create that acceptable 5 homes on one septic and well, whatever, you know, that's what we need to get our head wrapped around. That is how we're going to make a difference in Muskoka Lakes, in my opinion. We can't just focus on Bala and Port Carling. Yes, there are, I am aware of where the lots are in Bala very, very intimately, and the struggles. And I would say, having been doing this since 2011, I have been going around to property owners. It's not like we're not promoting it. I can't say specifically about Port Carling, but honestly, we've looked at the opportunities. We just need to look at something different for the rural if we're going to actually make a difference.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just add one comment. I know from the conversation about ARUs and the district has some incentive money. I do know that James Cox with the Economic Development Division, is working to actually update our own CIP program to introduce incentives for secondary suites, ARUs, if you will, and to work with the district to align and make sure that our incentives align with the policies at the district. In an effort to promote the township as incentivizing those opportunities as well. But thank you.
Next one is comprehensive zoning bylaw. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Sharp. You're up for the zoning bylaw.
Well, thank you, Chair Edwards, and good afternoon, committee. I prepared a brief report to keep Planning Committee informed of progress with respect to the township's ongoing comprehensive zoning bylaw update. Committee will recall that a project steering committee has been established, and the steering committee, together with staff and the project consultants, met for the first time in September. At this first meeting, the steering committee endorsed a community and stakeholder engagement strategy, which sets out a framework for community and stakeholder engagement over the duration of this important project for the township. Staff have recommended that this strategy be adopted by the planning committee. The steering committee, staff, and the project consultants are scheduled to meet again on October 30th and again on December 18th to continue progress through the project work plan. Both the community and stakeholder engagement strategy and the work plan have been included as appendices to my report. I have no further comments at this time, and I'd be happy to take any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Yes.
I just had one
Okay.
question when I read the report. For those who are not on the committee, I saw that we've delegated all responsibility to them and we just get to see a final report. Is there some point at which we get to early in the process as council members, provide input to the committee on what we'd like to make sure you guys get to consider? Rather than a complete exclusion, if I got a list of about 30 things that I've been keeping for the last 2 years that I think are very important for the bylaw, I mean, I actually hope that Rob has that list because we've done it together to some respect, but how do I communicate those to the committee so that we make sure that our input gets dealt with earlier rather than later? Because it sounds like there's no opportunity later.
Through you, Chair. Actually, council has delegated all authority to planning committee, save and except for final approval of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So there will be, you'll note in our work plan that there are regular touch points throughout the process where staff and the project consultants will report back to planning committee with respect to certain findings. For example, there'll be a final directions report that will come out, and there'll be a presentation to planning committee at that time. Planning committee will be able to make its input. If you're looking to dial down and send ideas or considerations with respect to the update that the steering committee may wish to consider, you're certainly more than able to send those to me, and I can pass them on to the project consultant, and we can go forward on that basis. Thank you.
Getting all the way to the bylaw recommendation that comes to us, make sure that if there are major issues from other council members, that we solicit those earlier in the process.
Yes, Mr. Pink.
Just to further clarify and add to Mr. Sharp's comments, to be clear, the approval authority hasn't been delegated to steering committee. I think you'll find there's multiple touch points of this planning committee as we go through the process and multiple opportunities for committee members to input. What's been delegated is any decision of this planning committee. The approval has been delegated to this committee, so we don't have to wait the 30-day cycle or go to council, so that staff and the steering committee and the consultants can more efficiently work instead of always having a 30-day delay. So that's all that's been delegated. It's not been delegated to steering committee. It's been delegated to planning committee. And again, as you can review in the work plan, there will be multiple touch points, rest assured, as staff is doing now, bringing a communication strategy for your review and input.
Yes, Councilor Roberts. Yes, Councilor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I am on that committee, and I hope I'm not speaking out of place, but I welcome phone calls from. Now I'm stopping because I'll be promoting the business outside a public meeting. So I just as I'm speaking, but if one or two people want to speak to me about their ideas, I don't see a problem with it unless I can ask the clerk for her opinion.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm of the opinion that those sorts of suggestions should go through to the manager of planning, who can then distribute them. I think it's important that all participants receive the information at the same time and in an equal fashion. I think that's how democracy works best, and so that's what I would encourage. However, obviously, you're not going to, the topic is going to come up. I appreciate that, but I would encourage you all to submit your comments and requests to Manager Sharp. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Great, thank you very much, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you.
Yeah. Moved by Councilor Mazin, second by Councilor Roberts. Be it resolved that committee and stakeholder engagement strategy attached to Appendix 1 to staff report plan 2024-157 be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I've prepared a report outlining heritage considerations related to a proposal by the district municipality of Muskoka to replace a structure known as the Port Carling Pavilion, which has been a long-standing fixture at the district's lock facility here in Port Carling. The structure and its associated cribbing and dock have undergone critical damage, as I understand it. and require replacement. The property, and more specifically, the pavilion, is listed within the township's Register of Properties of Heritage Interest. And as such, under the Ontario Heritage Act, the district is required to give council 60 days advance notice in writing of its intentions to demolish the structure, which it has done. The pavilion was replaced by the district in 2005 with the same level of oversight by the township and subsequent issuance of building permits. Staff have no objection to the proposed 1-for-1 or like-for-like replacement. I have no further comments at this time, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions at this time, or do I read it and then we can go to comments?
Oh, jeez. Oh.
Moved by Councillor Mazin, second by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that District Municipality of Muskoka be advised that the Township of Muskoka Lakes has no objection to the demolition of the Port Carling Pavilion, subject to the requirement that is replaced in a like-for-like basis and associated ribbing and dock deck with no material change in the size or the appearance of what currently exists. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And here's one. Moved by Councillor Kent, second by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that Planning Committee meeting adjourned at 12:25 p.m. and the regular Planning Committee meeting will be held Thursday, November 14th, 2024 at 9 a.m. by electronic and in-person hybrid format for the council chambers, municipal offices in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? That's carried.
Time limit.